Welcome to the Apex Leaders Podcast with me, Clayton Rose. In every episode, we speak to phenomenal leaders that will share wisdom to help us grow and become great leaders. Let's get into today's episode. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Apex Leaders Podcast, and we are so excited that you would join us again this week. We are so happy and privileged and honored to have a great guest with us today at the Apex Leaders Podcast. He's a friend of mine, and we've come a long way. But of late, we've just connected a bit more, and I was blessed with his book, signed copy, let me put it that way, a signed copy of his book, The 7 Components of Vision. And once I started reading it, it was just phenomenal. I just couldn't put it down. I'm going to show you the book. There's so much highlights and so much pencil underlining of statements and quotes, and it's just really good. And I encourage you to get it. I will share a bit more about that in a moment, but I'm honored to have Pastor Elroy Cook with us today. He's a former Navy SEAL. He's a expert self-help and publishing coach. He's a brilliant man of God. He's a preacher, pastor, leader, man that wears many hats but performs excellently in all of them. But I think his greatest title, and he can attest to this, is that he's a father to a beautiful young boy, Asher. He's a gorgeous little boy, bouncy, busy, but that's just the way we like them. And Pastor Elroy is the author of the 7 Components of Vision. And when I read this book, I said, we have to get him on the podcast. We have to get him and just to unpack a little bit of it. I must admit, we won't be able to get through everything today. There's so much wisdom and so much keys in this book, but I want to focus on maybe just 3 or 4 of the 7 components. And hopefully it will give you enough of a taste to want to get the book for yourself. Every leader must have this book. I must admit, every leader must have this book. And so today, without any further ado, I want to welcome my guest, Pastor Elroy Cook. Pastor, welcome.
Thank you so much, Pastor Clayton, and listeners. I want to say, keep on tuning into what Pastor Clayton is doing with his podcast, Apex. He's such a great leader that God is raising up in our city. But I told him just before we started, I don't just see this podcast making a local impact, but a global impact, because that's just the guy I came to know. Pastor Clayton he might be locally based, but he has such an international vision. And I pray that God continue to increase your wisdom, that he continues to increase your podcast. And thank you for the honor of having me on your podcast today.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. I received that, man of God. Pastor Elroy, let's get into it. But before we get into the book and the contents thereof, let's talk a little bit about your childhood and your upbringing. Where do you come from? What type of childhood do you have? How was life for you in your former years?
Oh, that's such an interesting question. I grew up in a small back room in the back of my grandmother's house, basically a garage. So it was built for a single car, but it was occupied by me, my twin brother, my mom, and then I also had 2 older sisters. One of my older sisters moved out of the house already, and my other older sister also moved out of the house, but then she moved back into the house, which is not actually a house, which was a garage. And our home was divided into 2 parts. The one part, which is the bedroom, separated by cupboards. The one part, which is the bedroom, my mom would sleep on the bed, and me and my brother would sleep on a mattress. And every morning we'd roll our mattress up, have our bread and butter with our coffee, and go to school. And on the other side was basically our kitchen, which we served both as a kitchen and also our living room. In primary school, I had a lot of desires. I had a desire for not worrying where our next meal would come from. I had a desire not to stand in the feeding line. Although I must be honest with you, I enjoyed some of the biscuits we got from the feeding scheme. I desired to have brand clothes. I desired to participate in sports without worrying where the money would come from for me and my twin brother to freely participate in sports. And in primary school, me and my brother started being what they call the troublemakers. We started getting in fights, being in the principal's office. We were so much in the principal's office, and we became such troublesome boys, the bad boys in our primary school, that they started to label me and my twin brother. They called us horrible and terrible. And they synonymous for being the troublemakers and the misfits. And that was basically our upbringing. In primary school, was it Altec? We all made some of us bang for ons. So we always used to get in trouble. And we also, one thing I also started doing is that me and my brother started washing our neighbors up the road from us. We used to go ask bread, and the lady, elderly Cape Malay couple. One day, me and my brother, we used to go ask bread. And from asking bread, we eventually asked, don't you have an odd job for us? So we used to wash their cars, clean their yards. We were just boys looking for direction in life. And unfortunately, we got involved with all of the wrong things. But even washing the cars and cleaning the yard of the neighbors up the road from us, they taught us an early lesson of being resourceful with the meager means. Even though my mom couldn't give us everything she desired, she did the best she could. And I love her so much. My mom was the first person who taught me about faith. My mom would insist that me and my brother go to our Methodist church, even though we were clubbing the night before. She would insist that we go to our Methodist church, and we would go faithfully. My mom was very resilient in her faith. My mom also another thing she taught me, maak gehou van skoonheid. Die huis moet altyd skoon is. Onze agterkamer. Sy het altyd gesê jy kan nie kom keer, dalk kom die president. My mom was very cleanliness orientated, and I appreciated that. But one of my greatest desires from a young age is I desired a father. And you spoke earlier about my son Esha, my 6-year-old, whom I love a lot. And one of my prayers is to be for him what I wish to hear. I never had a father growing up, and I desired a father. It was one of my strongest desires. And I guess acting out, being a troublemaker, getting in fights. If I can look back now, one of the reasons was because I felt hurt. I felt hurt by life. I felt hurt that I didn't have a father. And I think they say hurt people hurt other people. And that was true for me. The hurt I had, I projected it towards the world. That's why I was getting constantly in fights. And although people tried to intervene, my family tried to intervene, my mom tried to intervene, but I felt I was so cold and heartless during that period of my life. And going from primary school to high school, we just got worse. We eventually joined a gang called VGV's Veelgaat Varka, which was a group of guys in our community, and they belonged to the 26 gang. And me and my brother got in so many fights. I don't know about you, but labels as a way of pulling you down to the status of that label.
Yeah.
So people started to say to me and my brother, because we had twin brothers in our family, and they were misfits. They got involved with drugs, gangsterism, in and out of prisons. And because we were related to them, people thought that we will also end up that way. And
Sure.
like I said, labels is a way of dragging you down to the status of that label. And because people said that we will either be, and I don't blame them, because this is how we were at that state of our life. I had this anger towards my father because I felt so rejected. I felt so hurt. And the first time I really got to meet him was when, probably I met him when I was younger, but I couldn't recall it.
Yeah.
But that time when I was stabbed with a bandage around my face was when he came to us for the first time in my adulthood. I think this was in matric. He came to us and he asked me who did this, and I didn't know how to respond to him. I thought I would be so enraged after the first time I met him, but because of being so hurt, even now by being stabbed with a bottle, I didn't know how to respond to him. I don't even recall what I said to him that day. I think I was probably just glad seeing the person who should have been my first model of manhood. I was just relieved to see him. And during that time at home, I was busy recovering with this wound. And I didn't want to be a part of a gang anymore. I wanted to do better for my life, but I didn't know how. Me and my twin brother both failed a grade in high school, but I realized that one of my ways out of my circumstances was education. And there was pressure that I was not dealing with, having to navigate life with no sense of stability. My mom tried the best she could, but raising boys is so difficult. That's why gangsterism caught us, because we wanted that sense of belongingness. But I think that stabbing incident was one of my turning points. And I said to myself, and even though me and my brother both failed a grade, I knew that my only way out of my predicament to have a better life for myself was education. So I persevered. And I'll tell you what, the last year of our high school is when a group came to our school for the first time called the For Change Foundation. And when they came to our group, the school for the first time called, they came on the outreach mission. They basically do plays in different schools, but the plays they do is basically is to do outreach. And after the play is done, the leader of the organization, which is Dr. Maxwell Holland, would preach. And me and my brother, the last day they were there, I think it was the Sunday, we decided to go up to the school hall just to listen to them, to watch the play, not knowing that this would be our divine appointment.
Wow.
That day after the play, Dr. Maxwell Holland, and it was in 2008, came and he preached the story about the prodigal of the lost son. And eventually made an altar call. And afterwards, me and my twin brother found ourselves at the altar, surrendering and giving our life to Jesus. Now, I've been a church goer all of my life, but I've never encountered Jesus in the way I did in 2008 in the pet school hall, listening to the story about the prodigal of the lost son. I could relate to the prodigal of the lost son in so many ways. I was lost in my faith. I was lost in my purpose. I was lost in my identity. I was lost in so many areas. And when the Dr. Maxwell Holland started preaching about this son that lost himself but came back to a father, which is our ultimate father, Jesus, God, I realized that's the father I needed.
Wow.
You know, I might not really have had an earthly father that could have been present for me, but I discovered that day the love of the father I never knew. And me and my brother both stepped out and we committed and we gave our life to Jesus that day. And like I said, I've been a church goer all of my life, but that is one of the first tangible moments where I encountered this Jesus. And that was the start of my transformative journey. And after we got saved there, these people, Dr. Maxwell Holland with his team, invited us to their church. And that church wasn't in our community and we didn't have a car. God is so divine that the people that attended his church, which was in another community in Ramsey, the people that were attending his church was a neighbors living across the road from us, and they had a
Wow.
car, Alga and Jermaine. So now we asked them for love to church, and they were love to church. I remember the first time we stepped into Dr. Maxwell Holland's church. The people were so friendly, Pastor Clayton. They were so friendly that me and my brother asked ourselves, but the mensen so vriendelijk. So, but then I realized it's the love of God. And when you encounter the true love of God, there is a joy of the presence. There is a love that you can't explain. And the people were so friendly to us. And me and my brother has built such a hard shell because we became so hard trying to be gangsters. We became so hard trying to be the strong individuals. And it made us cold. And encountering the love of Jesus in that school, well, eventually when we went to that church, we first didn't understand. We thought, no man, these people, die mensen said, and hoe kan hulle so vriendelijk is?
Yeah, yeah.
If you our past, they would have responded to us how other people had responded to
Yes.
us based on past. But we just encountered such a love of God in the church. And that's basically a bit about my story, about even most of the stuff I'm doing now. Jesus was the start of my journey, of my transformative journey. And I'll tell you one thing, the last year of my high school, if me and my brother never failed that grade and we just passed high school as normal, we would have missed the For Change Foundation because that year when we ended in Madrid, that was the first time they came to our school. And I
Wow.
realized sometimes God will deliberately hold you back from entering certain seasons of your life, not because He's forgotten about you, but because maybe He's still busy preparing you. Maybe He's still busy holding you back because he needs to do a work in your life before he takes you into the next season of your life.
That's so good.
And if we never failed, we might have missed our divine appointment.
Wow.
You know, And although my failure was shameful to my family at the time, shameful to me, I felt like such a disappointment. Having failed a grade in high school, I felt like a loser.
Yeah.
But I thank God now that I see how His plan came together in my life that I failed a grade, because although I was held back, it was a deliberate delay so I can have a divine encounter with Jesus in that school. And it's like an arrow. The more an arrow is pulled back, the further it can go. And
Yeah.
sometimes ourselves as leaders, as emerging leaders, we experience a lot of setbacks, a lot of pullbacks. But the reason sometimes because the more you pull an arrow back, the further it can go. And the more we experience pressure in our life, like the arrow, the further God can launch us into our destiny. And for me, the greatest day in my life was the day I accepted Jesus as my personal Lord and Savior. And that was the start for me of everything else that has happened in my life. The fact that He came into my life, He removed the label, because now I had a new label of possibilities. And also going to Dr. Maxwell Holland's church, just experiencing a love and a joy of people devoted to Jesus like I've never had in my whole life. Like I said, I've been a church attender, a church goer, but when I accepted Him, I was no longer just a church attender, a church goer. I was going to the family of God, because now I'm part of the family of Jesus. And that's basically some of where I come from. And I just started faithfully serving in the church as an usher, and and serving as an usher. I didn't know after we matriculated high school, Pastor Clayton, I didn't know what I'm going to do with my life. And we also didn't pass it great. My matric result was not the best. And I didn't even qualify. They say I didn't pass with a bachelor's. And a bachelor's qualifies you to go and study by university.
Yeah.
I didn't then I think I got that. And after high school, I didn't know what to do with my life. We eventually there was an IT opportunity to study end user computing. We took it because we're desperate. It's either you look for a job or you have the funds to go study. We didn't have funds to go study. I remember in my class, my classmates used to tell us about the universities they're going to study it. And I would just remark and tell them, just so that I don't feel left out, that, yeah, I'm also going to study at this, and I'm going to study at this university. No, get the resources for it. And it was not really my passion. I just didn't want to feel left out. So
Yeah.
after school, I didn't know what to do with my life. And we also, in our church, there was a guy that also gave us like a job to work at his computer shop. And from working at his computer shop, there was this computer opportunity to study end user computing. And we applied, we got accepted. But it's during that course, while I was studying end user computing, there's a guy in our community, his name is Khaled. He was now the former mayor, executive mayor of Randfontein, the place I come from. I come from Tukumzilus. So he just came to me and he said, Pastor Clayton, he said to me, why don't you join the Navy? And he was in the South African Navy. Now, I didn't know about the Navy. I probably knew about the Army, but I was
Yeah.
kicked by it. See,
Yeah.
by
Yeah.
a funny army. But I didn't know because I'm just simply seeing it.
Yeah.
And I've never been in Cape Town. So I don't know much about the Navy. But he came to me with an opportunity. And I didn't know at the time. So I just said yes, because I didn't there wasn't much prospects for me, and I didn't have much direction for what to. I started serving God. I started being an usher in church, but as far as where I'm gonna go and what I'm gonna do with my life, I didn't have a 5-year plan. I didn't have a 10-year plan. I just knew I have to make a plan to win.
Yeah. Yeah.
Came with this opportunity. Why don't you join the Navy? And it sounded exciting at the time. I didn't know what I was getting into or what it was exactly. It just sounded exciting at the time. And I said, yes, I'd love to join. So the first time I applied, because we have to because you must apply, then you go through the selection phase. I remember it was a diverse selection.
Yeah.
And we have to swim 300 meters, and 300 meters is 6 laps, the size of an Olympic pool.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you that we did all of the tests. When it came to the swimming test, I didn't make the 6 laps and I didn't pass the selection. I was so disappointed. I was so discouraged. I'll tell you something. I tried my best to swim that 300 meters, but I got so tired. that I couldn't anymore. And I gave up.
Yeah.
And I thought I was a good swimmer until that test. When you think you can do something.
Yeah.
I thought was a good swimmer past that later until that test exposed me.
Pastor Elroy, let's get into the conversation about the 7 components of the book. Thank you for sharing a bit of your testimony. It's really powerful to think where God has brought you from. And I think it gives good context to where this conversation is going in terms of vision. Because ultimately, out of that type of background and upbringing, there had to be a vision that you had for yourself, that you're not going to die in the situation. You're not going to become a statistic. You're not going to become like one of the other family members that you referred to or end up in the destination where most of them ended up in. And so when I was reading this book, I could really understand the wisdom, but I also understood that there was context to this thing. That wasn't just let me write something that's going to sound good. There was actually some personal impartation and wisdom and advice that you put into this book. And I really enjoyed it. But for the sake of our viewers and understanding vision, you define vision in the book. And so maybe you can give us that definition of vision, and then also maybe just describe to us what is the difference between a vision and a dream.
It has to tie into how this book was formed. One day, one in our church, one of the ladies, because our church had its own magazine. And one day, they asked me to write an article. Now, for this magazine on dreams. Now you must understand, first of all, sometimes people see more potential in you that you don't see yourself. But I've realized something is that expectation, they say, is the breeding ground of miracles. But have you ever noticed that when somebody has a great expectation of you, you tend to want to live up to that expectation.
Yeah.
It's like everybody expected you to be defined by your label until somebody comes to you with a new expectation of what you can do. The first time I had somebody that had a new expectation with me of what my life could be was Mrs. Smith in high school. Out of all of the teachers I had, she was the teacher that believed that my story could be different. In the people that we used to go and wash cars with, the Cape Malay elderly couple, Auntie Celia and Rudolph, they started treating me and my brother like their children, giving us work to do, taking us with them on fishing. And there's something powerful that happens to the mind of an individual when somebody places another expectation on you. For the book, somebody asked me in our church, one of the editors, to write an article on dreams. And I realized that most of us have broken dreams or unrealized dreams. And it stirred something in me. It stirred because now I had a question to myself, but why do some people realize their dreams and other people don't realize their dreams? And the mere fact that she placed that expectation, because I was not really a writer. I don't know. Because I was posting some stuff, but I was not a writer. So she placed an expectation for me. And have you noticed when people have expectations, we tend to want to live up to that expectation, whether it's a good expectation or bad expectation. So she asked me to write an article on dreams. And I think this was where I had a conversation with myself, Pastor Clayton. But clearly there must be a difference between dreams and visions. Because there's so many people that has dreams, but they have not realized it. Then you have a few people that has realized their dreams. So I started to have this question within myself, but what are the key components that allows certain people to achieve their wildest dreams while other people are just having daydreams?
Yeah.
So that's the conversation I had to myself. But then I realized, besides that, there's people that wants to achieve their dreams, I also have dreams. I think the first dream I had was the dream just to make it past the test, the Navy test, and I failed it. But I kept on holding on to that dream. And then the person that recommended I do that, they said, don't give up, try again. And although I was discouraged, he said I should try again. I tried again. And the following year, I think several months later, there was another opportunity for me to do a different Navy test. And I made it through all of the tests and I got accepted. And I joined the South African Navy after I failed the test. I started writing this article on dreams and vision. during my basic military training. And the question I had to myself was, why do a lot of people have realized dreams and a lot of people have daydreams? Then I realized something. There must be something different. There's something different. I realized is that a lot of people have dreams, but a lot of people don't have the vision to make the dreams a reality. And I define what vision and dreams is. If you look at the Oxford definition of what a dream is, the Oxford definition of what a dream is, they say a dream is something that somebody has when they are asleep. So they're not consciously aware of what they are doing. So they are asleep and they are dreaming. But then you get another dream, which is not, and then they define vision as the ability to have foresight. So to think about something, meaning you are fully alert. And usually you can be awake and daydream.
Yeah.
But the vision separates dreams because a vision is something where you apply plans and action to it. And that's basically what defines a vision, is that you have a plan and action to it. And in Habakkuk chapter 2, verse 2, it says, write down the vision and make it plain so that everybody that sees it can run. Now, you can't run you can't run with something you don't see.
Yeah.
Write out something you don't see. So you have to see it first. And it's not just about seeing its outcome, but it's about seeing the pieces you need in order to reach that outcome. I define in the opening introduction of the book, when you look at a puzzle piece, usually what you have on top, you have the complete picture. But then when you get inside the box, you have the different puzzle pieces.
Yeah.
So usually our dream can be defined as the complete picture, which is on the box. But the different puzzle pieces is the different steps you need. And you have to use strategy, wisdom, in order to assemble the pieces so that when the pieces are assembled, it matches the picture on the box.
Yeah.
A lot of us, we have big dreams, but our dreams have not been realized. It doesn't match the picture on the box. And the reason it doesn't match the picture on the box, because we've not understood the requirements we need to assemble, the components we need in order to get you to the picture on the box.
Yeah.
So a lot of us go our whole life holding up the picture on the box in our mind. We have a dream of that degree. We have a dream of that big house. We have a dream of that beautiful marriage. We have a dream of great relationships, a great friendship. And we hold that dream, which is the picture on the box, our whole life. But not a lot of us have understand what is the requirements that I need, what is the components that I need to put together in order to get me to the complete picture on the box. And I started writing this book as an answer to that solution. That listen, you have the picture on the box, which is great, which is amazing. But there is also different components you need to assemble in order to get you to the picture on the box. And what is vision? Plainly, vision is when a plan makes action. That's simply what vision is. Can I say that slowly? Vision is simply when a plan meets action. Because nowadays we devalue things like planning, like big self-discipline. But all of these components you need. You might not value discipline until you see the outcome of disorder in undisciplined life created.
Yeah.
Can I say it again? You might not like self-discipline, but you will understand its value until you see outcome of a disordered life an undisciplined life has brought you.
Yeah.
So every component you need is necessary in order to get to the complete picture on the box. So what is vision simply? Vision is simply when a plan meets action.
Sure.
And a lot of people they might have the plan, but they don't meet it with action.
Yeah.
So vision is simply that when a plan meets action, and your dream is simply as the final outcome of your dream, where you desire yourself to be, where you see yourself to be. But your vision is when your plan meets action. Because why? That's why Habakkuk encourages us, write down the vision Make it plain. Why do you need something plain? Because the purpose of a revelation is never to keep something hidden.
Yeah.
It's to reveal it.
Yeah.
Let me say, the purpose of a revelation is not to hide something further, but it's to reveal that thing.
Yeah.
And if you can't reveal what you see, nobody can run towards the fulfillment of their desire.
Sure.
So the fact that you can reveal what you've seen, what God has given you, the blueprint that God has given you, if you can reveal it and make it plain, now people can run towards that outcome. If you can't make something plain, you don't understand it correctly yet.
Yeah.
And God gives you a vision so that you are able to make it plain so that anybody that sees it can run in fulfillment to that vision. You can't run in fulfillment to something you don't see yet.
Yeah.
And God put that vision in your mind because the vision is the plan that meets action. And that's basically the difference between your vision and your dreams. Vision
Yeah.
is when a plan meets action. Your dream is the outcome you desire to achieve on the box. In order to fit the puzzle pieces together, it's a plan, is a metaphor for plan that means action.
True. That's so good.
Because there's a certain sequence you have to assemble the puzzle pieces. And if you don't know the sequence, you might not get the order right. But if you understand the sequence, you will get to the complete outcome, which is the picture on the box.
Yeah.
And all the book's purpose is to help leaders. And so I believe this is a book that every church ministry should get their people. It's a book that every leader should get because it will help you get to the complete picture on the box. And that's what when the plan meets action. A lot of people have a lot of dreams, but they've never, because your vision will make you understand what is the requirements of the dream.
Sure.
I wanted to write my first book, but I realized there's requirements in order to write it. I wanted to have my own seminar, and I realized it's good that I have the dream, but there's a requirements I need to fulfill. I wanted to go beyond where I was a bad performing student in high school to study a degree at university. First time I applied, I didn't get accepted. I applied, I continued, and now I'm in my fourth year doing my honors degree. Why? Because I understood there's requirements.
Yeah.
And that's what vision does. Vision allows you to understand what the plan is and the actions you need to take in order to meet the requirements of your dream.
Sure. I like what you said in the book about success in all spheres requires both dreaming big and having a strong vision. So even though they are different, they are mutually beneficial to each other. And for the vision to succeed, there has to be a dream, right? But for the dream to succeed, there has to be a vision. And without the two not working together, you're going to basically be walking around the same mountain like the Israelites did for 40 years when it should have taken you 11 days. And so I really like that. And then there was another thing you said about without strong vision, people will find themselves pursuing their dreams without a plan, which increases their chances of failure. And it's just something that you touched on now. Like it's when the plan meets action. There's one thing to have a plan and it can look good on a board. It can look good on your phone or wherever you've typed it out. But if you don't have the action behind it, that will just always be that picture on the box, which I really love that illustration, Pastor Elroy. I think it leads us to talking about one of the components that you mentioned there, which is thinking big. I think there's a danger to being leaders in positions that cannot dream big or see big. They only see their current circumstances. They only see the current situation, and they think in the old days they said "Suche kry, what suche ontvangs, so bly ou," something like that. And so that's all they see. But when you have visionary leaders, you can see the difference in people, and people are energized by visionary leaders. So maybe just talk to us a little about thinking big, the importance of thinking big, and why thinking small can be a threat to a leader.
Okay. Thinking big is the first component of, and I like, and like you said, you need to be a dreamer. You need to be a crazy dreamer. You need to be a big dreamer. And when you look at the first component, which is thinking big, I'm busy doing a lot of new developments on the book. So thinking big is not just a component, it is actually a law.
Yeah.
Because when you look at the lives of all the big achievements, whether it's an Olympic athlete, whether it's somebody that builds the biggest skyscraper, whether it's a new innovation, whether it's what separates the wishful thinker from the strategic doer is their vision, number one. But what separates the small achiever to the one that has great success is their big thinking.
Wow.
And a lot of people sometimes think they fear thinking big because they don't believe they will be, not because it is impossible. A lot of people fear thinking big, not because it's impossible, but because they simply believe they are incapable.
Wow.
Can I say that again? A lot of people don't dream big or think big, not because it is impossible, but because they believe they are incapable. But the reason why God gives you a big dream in a small place, it's because that's how your faith works.
Yeah.
That's why God gives you a big dream in a small place, because now it's room for you to activate your faith.
Sure.
Because whatever you receive by faith, it's already yours before you see the physical manifestation of it.
Yeah.
And that's why God will give you a big dream in a small place so that you can activate your faith, so that you can walk by faith.
Yeah.
Because if your dream is too small, if your dream doesn't scare you, it's too small. Every great achievement, big thinking is the foundation. And like you said, a lot of big leaders come into roles and they just occupy the role. They just settle. But the greatest task of being a leader, you must cast the new vision, the new big plan, because there's two ways that shows people you dream big and you think big. Number one, win a championship. Rassi Erasmus didn't train his people to win school competitions, but to
Yeah.
win championships. There's three ways where you can see somebody that actually thinks big is they win championships, they break records, they build something big. Can I say that again? They win championships, they break records, and they build something big.
Yeah.
That's how you see somebody is a big thinker. And whenever leader takes over any role, for your job is not just to maintain what you found, but your job is to exploit and maximize the opportunity. Can I say that again? Whenever leadership comes into any position, it's not for you to maintain what you found, but to maximize and exploit it so that you take it to levels it has not previously been. So that organization should not be what it is after you.
Yeah.
That business should not be what it is after you. Why? Because now a big thinker has entered. So whatever you're building, you should want to break a record with it. You should want to win a championship with it. You should want to bring about innovation with it, because that's how big thinking, the values of a big thinker manifest. And because one of my laws, I'm updating the book and it ties into this because it's another component. It's not complete. It's not in this book, but it's a very vital component. It's the law of increasing glory. And when I state under the law of increasing glory, because I'm updating my book, this current book, to the 9 non-negotiable laws of uncommon success. And
Wow.
one of the laws of increasing glory is that whenever you've achieved a victory, never settle at a victory, because that victory becomes now the foundation of the next victory.
Yeah.
So you increase glory. Glory must be increased because everything that God creates, He created the sun and the sun keeps on shining. He creates the birds and they keep on flying. He created trees and they keep on growing.
Yeah.
So anything God created was not meant to live a settled life. In fact, it's your purpose that energizes you. And the reason why a lot of men and leaders don't have energy is because they don't have something bigger that energizes them. Can I
Wow.
say that again? Birds get their energy from flying. Even the leopard, he gets his energy from running, and the lion gets his energy from hunting. And then the reason a lot of leaders and a lot of men don't have energy is because they have nothing bigger than them
To energize them.
that energizes them.
Wow.
And the reason why your dream needs to be so big because it should seem impossible.
Yeah.
Can I say that? It should seem impossible that it can't seem that you would build a bigger, it can't look like you would be able to build a bigger. It looked impossible a few years ago when I told people that I'm busy writing a book. I had no experience from writing a book.
Sure.
There was no signs on me that I had the potential to write a book. It only started with a big dream. And sometimes people think you need to have, you need to be that thing yet before you do it. But I like the story of Noah. And I'll tell you why I like the story of Noah. I'm going to talk about his story this coming Sunday at our church. And there is accounts of storms in the Bible. There's one account where Jesus is in the boat with his disciples and he's on his lap, he sleeps.
Yeah.
And then another account where they are in the storm and he comes to them walking on top of the water and his own disciples could not recognize him in the storm.
Yeah.
But then there's a storm that now the biggest storm where God tells Noah to prepare for a storm. Now you must understand, to be in a storm is one thing, and Jesus coming to you in a storm is another thing.
Yeah.
But to prepare for a storm, it's a whole new ballgame in itself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now you was not just preparing for a storm. No, and my title for that sermon is "Wat sal jy doen as jy weet 'n storm is op pad?"
Sure.
Now you must know, when you read the story of Noah, there's one circumstance where he's drunk, and we know the story about it. And you have two of his sons, this graceful cover their father's nakedness, other one doesn't. But just imagine here, so God was actually using somebody. It's crazy. He was actually using an alcoholic because he was drunk and naked.
Yeah.
You can't tell me God didn't knew there's Noah that he chose will be drunk and naked.
Sure.
And most of us, we are just like this. We think we have to meet every requirement before God uses us.
Sure.
We think we have to have all of the faith in the world before God chooses us. We think we have to have everything in order before God says, I'm going to raise you up. I'm going to do a mighty thing in your life. Just be faithful, because faithful men are not perfect people. I think the reason why God could choose Noah, because God knew he'd stay faithful under pressure.
Yeah.
And the reason why God gives you a big dream, it's not because you would be faithful all the time, but because he knew he could rely on your consistency to be
Wow.
faithful. The pressure.
Wow.
And the pressure when the things in your life don't work out. When that one business you started, it didn't make you that multimillionaire that you envisioned it to be. But what if it's on the next one you started?
Yeah.
What everything has a cycle. And sometimes before you break through that cycle, God will test your consistency to stay with that thing until it works for you.
Yeah.
Let's say that again. A lot of people, you see everything as a cycle. And sometimes the cycle is not complete because you have not learned what it takes for you to push you to the next level.
Yeah.
But God says, in your big dreaming, can you hold up that thing long enough until it has produced the dream that I've given you? Because that's basically what big dreaming is. Can you hold it up long enough, firm enough, in the midst of pressure?
And I think that leads us to the next component that I want to speak about, which is total commitment. Total
Yes.
commitment. Because in the process of dreaming big, thinking big, and building, you also talk about building step by step, there will be failure. And failure is often part of vision building. A vision, while reaching a dream or goal, failure must be part of it. It's like you said, to test your consistency and all those things. But maybe speak to us about the benefits of failure and how it benefits a leader while they are casting vision or dreaming big or thinking about what God has placed on their heart to do for an organization or for a business. What does failure bring to the party or to the table that will help a leader? One of the things you said there is the quote that you have in the book there at the start of the chapter was, the uncommitted life, a life full of half-hearted effort, mediocre performance, and poor results. Right? So that's if you're not committed. But you can't give up when you are failing. You can't give up at the first sign of failure or the first hurdle. And there was another thing that you said, or T.D. Jakes was saying, that was, often when you fail in one thing, it leads to the thing. And so what most leaders, and especially for emerging leaders that are going to come up now, the journey is never easy. Failure will be part of the journey. So if you could maybe just touch on those benefits of failure that the leader will encounter.
I just have to start off with saying that although we sometimes glamorize failure, the reality is, the truth is, failure is hard. It is hard for leaders to deal with failure.
Oh, 100%.
Failure can discourage you. It can have you moments in your life where you have to question that the call of God upon your life, question whether you would make it. But failure is one of the best things that can happen to a leader. I'll tell you why. Usually, when you have not failed, you're still full of yourself. I've got
Yeah.
this. I can do anything. You feel invincible until you meet failure.
Yeah.
Then a lot of people know a few years ago, I went through the failure of my divorce, and it was a dream that that was broken. Everybody wants to get married and it should work.
Yeah.
Mine didn't work. Of all my friends, I was asking God, why me? And sometimes why me is also ego, a question of ego, because you feel because you're a man of God, so you're exempt from certain trials.
Yeah.
You feel because you're this mighty woman valley, you're exempt from certain trials. But all of us have a unique story.
Yeah.
And now God has given me a ministry out of my failure. Now I can speak to divorced people. Then listen, God can still raise you up. God can still use you.
Yeah.
And I don't speak from a place from theory. I understand that pain exactly. I'm now writing a book for divorced people.
Wow.
Isn't it interesting how God will allow you to go through a problem and give you a solution for the problem?
Wow.
So sometimes, even I've written 3 books now, and my 3 books was a stepping stone for my 4th book and my 5th. And sometimes the failures we experience in one season equips you to have victory in another season. Can
That's
I say that again?
very good.
You know how to do business better now because you have 3 failed businesses.
Yeah.
You know how to do friendship better because for 10 years, you didn't know how to keep friendships. You are your friend verloor.
Yes.
And I was preaching one day, I said, if you're a man of God and you don't have friends, that's hulle is die probleem. Jy is die probleem.
Yeah.
Why? Because area in your life involves an area that you have to manage, you have to steward. You have to steward friendships. Because you see, if you can't have a friend, because friendship is the foundation of every other relationship.
Yeah.
You can't be an anointed man of God and say you have no friends. That's iets fout met jou, nie met hulle nie.
Yes.
Nie eens die Here was alleen, hy 12 disciples gehad. And I don't know about you, to have 12 disciples, it's not easy.
Yeah. There's a different
And
type of management. There's a different type of management there.
Sometimes gaan jou vriende jou irriteer. I have few friends and sometimes I'm also upset with them.
Yeah.
But I realize I can make the offense bigger than the relationship. And I said it's demonic to allow because offense is a demonic spirit of unforgiveness.
Yeah.
So you can choose to live an offended life and build fences around you,
Yeah.
or live a life filled with grace and say, I let go of the fence because I value the relationship more.
Yeah.
So even when you fail, like me, I have now a book I can write for divorced people. And a lot of people will be able to relate to me as a man of God because sometimes God will take you through a thing because God's not going to teach you that I can still use a man of God that has gone through this because you feel disqualified, you feel unworthy. But let me show you a testimony.
Yeah.
Because out of your failure, God can bring a testimony. He gives you a testimony that where others think that you are concluded by your failure, He gives you a testimony with that failure.
Sure.
God is more interested in the testimony. When the woman of issue of blood came to him, he said, I'm going to give you a testimony. After 12 years, you've tried stuff that it didn't work out, but I'm going to give you a testimony of long promises you're waiting on that when you come to me, I can give you breakthrough in that area.
Sure.
God is interested in the testimony He wants to give you. You've tried 3 businesses, but if you're just faithful, even though you're experiencing failure, I'm giving you testimony on how you overcome in that area. So firstly, what failure does, it gives you a greater testimony. Because everybody can testify from a comfortable place.
Yeah.
But who can testify from a place where they've been broken? Before God sometimes uses you powerfully in that thing, He will break you first. And everybody that God used in the Bible, God came to meet them in the time when they were broken. He came to Noah when Noah was broken. He came to, he told Moses to go liberate the Israelites in Egypt. But Moses was a convict on the run because he had just killed somebody.
Yeah.
It is the worst time to select somebody. He's in the desert, he's a convict, and here he has to go liberate people that is imprisoned.
Sure.
It's the worst time to select somebody. And sometimes God will come to the worst scenarios, the worst places that we find ourselves, and say, I can use you beyond your divorce.
Wow.
I can use you beyond your failed business.
Yeah.
I can use you beyond that relationship. And one thing failure does, also failure keeps you humble. Because I'll tell you something, sometimes we become so legalistic with our faith. Now you're so holy, nobody can touch you. And afterwards, when failure has humbled you, you realize you're only standing by God's grace, number one. It teaches you humility. But it also teaches you to relate to other people when they fail because you understand now where you were. And
Yeah.
there's times you need that grace. And it's the same grace you can give to other people. So there's a lot of things that failure teaches you humility. It teaches you that grace because you have received grace when you fail. So
Yeah.
it's the same grace you have to give for others. But also failure teaches you the most profound thing that failure teaches you. It teaches you the failure of the pattern that you've been using.
Wow. Tell us
Everything is, it teaches you the failure of the pattern.
of the pattern.
Yeah.
What wasn't working? What wasn't working?
It wasn't working.
I need to show you a different way.
Yes. And now God has to show you a different pattern. Everything that does not align with the pattern of God, He will break down.
Wow.
Because you see, God, because certain storms are just recurring cycles.
Yeah.
God gives you another chance. Okay, now come and give you a friendship again. Can you keep this friendship?
Yeah.
Come and give you a new business.
Yeah.
Have you learned a new pattern that needs? Because even in the failure is the ingredients for success. Because even if you fail 100 times at anything, you're further than the person that didn't start once.
Yeah.
Let me say that if you fail 100 times at something, you're further than the person that didn't start. More about how that thing won't work out than the person that didn't start once.
Wow.
You might have started 100% and it might have been failures, but the failures is not actually failures, it's experience.
Good.
And experience becomes foundation.
Yeah.
And I can tell you something, the stronger the foundation, the more stable the structure. So even though you fail 100 times at something, guess what? You have a more stable foundation. The stronger the foundation, the more stable the structure. And
Sure.
because God wants to build so big in your life, He's giving you a stronger foundation.
Yeah.
He's
Being
giving us-
in the construction industry, one of our businesses, if you want the mixture to be strong for your foundation, the clip is straight, throw more stones in. You know?
Absolutely.
And so I think failure is those stepping stones that is mixed into a vision that will help you become stronger, like you said. Pastor Elroy, I think this conversation can go on for another 3 hours because there's so much depth in this type of conversation and based on our personal experiences when we used to do calls like this. I still remember one time we were on a call and we said, we wish it was recorded because there's so much stuff that's coming out of this conversation. Do you remember? And I know we can talk. Like, maybe we should have a part 2 again sometime.
Yes.
But
Yes.
just as we close, thank you for sharing so much. And we don't want to give away too much. People must get this book. People must get this book, The 7 Components of Vision. It's going to bless you as a leader. It's going to help you as a leader. It's going to mold you, develop you. It will even help you avoid certain things that other people had to experience and maybe put you further down the road in a quicker amount of time than they're going through everything. Great leaders are great readers. Let me say that again. Great leaders are great readers. That's why you see behind me, I have some books here. I try to read as often as possible so that I can keep it sharp. And one of the things you were saying in the book, we don't have to get in the conversation about it, but one of the things you were speaking about was exposure. Reading has the ability to take you to a place that you don't even have to sit your foot on a plane. It will take you to a place. It will take you through experiences that you won't even have to go through yourself, so that you don't have to put that energy or the time into it, but you are gaining the wisdom from it. And so reading really helps you, and I'm going to encourage you to get this book. But Pastor Elroy, as we close today, would you just share some key advice or wisdom that you want to share with some current and emerging leaders, maybe those who are struggling in the area of vision, or maybe some is maybe feeling discouraged today? So you want to just share some wisdom or advice with them as we close today, and then we're going to let the people know how they can reach you again. But I was so blessed by this conversation, and like I said, I think we should maybe speak about having part 2.
That would be awesome. That would be awesome, Pastor Clayton. Let me say, leave you with this, and I'll come back to Noah. When you look at Noah, he was supposed to, and because Noah was asked by God to build something he's never seen before.
Sure.
He was asked to build something he had never seen before. And it was a big vision. The ark was on the scale of the Titanic and bigger. He was not just called to build something that is big and beyond him. As that the very ark that he built didn't just save himself, but saved his entire family.
Wow.
Let me just say that whatever you're building in this season, whether you are building the dream of having that degree or PhD, I would like my PhD. Whether you are building that dream of having the biggest church in the nation, whether you are building that dream of being this great entrepreneur, whether you are building the dream of being one of the best speakers in the nation and even globally, whatever dream that God has given you, just like Noah, becomes the ark that not only saves you, but your family.
Wow.
In the midst when Noah was building the ark, he told a lot of people about it, and they made fun of him because he was warning them against a storm that is coming. Now, how can you warn people about the storm that is coming and yet you're still in a storm?
Sure.
He was in a storm warning people for a storm. He was in a storm of people not believing in the dream that God has given him. He was in a storm with his family trying to convince them that God has told him to build something. But when the storm comes, you must understand, the very storm he warned about vindicated Noah as not a liar and truly a man of God. Can I say that again? Usually when we see a storm in somebody's life, we say God is not with them.
Yeah.
But it was the very storm that he experienced when it eventually came that vindicated him as a liar, not as a liar, but as a true man of God.
Wow.
Once people see the dream that God has given you, once he's seen you build that business, once they see you build that business, once they see you've become the successful entrepreneur, the successful author, the successful marriage, the successful dream that God has given you, it's going to vindicate you as a true man and woman of God.
Wow.
And God will never tell you something in one place and not fulfill it. He's a fulfiller of his word. And whatever God has told you to build, just like Noah, becomes the ark and not just saves you, but your entire family.
Wow.
May God bless you.
Wow. So good. I'm excited for your church people that's going to hear the sermon on Sunday, the full version.
Hey,
We just got a 2 minute on that, but I think that's going to be a powerful word. Thank you so much, Pastor Elroy, for blessing us today with your wisdom, for your insights, and just your sharing your heart and your story. I know people are going to be blessed by it. How can people contact you if they want a copy of the book? How can they reach you?
You can contact me on Facebook. My name is Elroy Cook Family. You can contact me there. And even if you want to copy my book, you can also speak to Pastor Clayton. He will connect you on, and he'll also make sure that you get your copy. But thank you so much for having me on your show. I'm looking forward to part 2 as well. It's always so great connect. There's something about a man's spirit when it provokes the greatness out of somebody else. And I remember the last time we always had such enriching conversations. And that's why I always love connecting with you and speaking to you, Pastor Clayton.
No, awesome. Thank you. Thank you for your friendship as well. And I look forward to lots. So if you want to reach out to Pastor Elroy, he's on Facebook, he's on Instagram. We'll share his details on the screen below as well. But thank you, Pastor Elroy, from the bottom of our heart. That's our second episode of the Apex Leaders podcast, and it was such a blessing. I know that you're going to be blessed. And go rewatch it over and over until you get the keys, until you get the nuggets that were shared here today. That's going to help you become a better leader. Thank you for joining us this week, and we look forward to seeing you on the next one. God bless you.